Hello, this is Virtualis the Chess Noob, learning and having fun with chess. One of the most important priorities in a game of chess is the safety of the king. The win condition of chess is checkmate. And checkmate is fundamentally an unstoppable attack on the king, regardless of all other factors such as material loss, the strength of your position, and how close you are to checkmating the opponent yourself. This is why we always need to be careful about the defences around our king. Everybody who has played chess for a while will have blundered a move that resulted in a mate in 2, or even a mate in 1 accidentally. In today's video, I'm going to talk about a short game I played yesterday where I took advantage of a weakness in the opponent's position, and the bias where we can get blinded due to our aversion to material loss. So let's start with a review of the game. So this is what chess.com's algorithms think. So I did relatively well, accuracy of 80.9. One blunder, which represents this little spike here. But we'll have a look at what that move actually was in the context of the game. So straight to analysis. I played black, opponent white. And the opponent started with an interesting move, knight to f3. In these situations, I don't have a particular setup that I play, and I usually just try to play solidly. So develop my pawns to the center, try to control the center, develop my minor pieces, castle. So that's usually what my goal is. So pawn to d5. The opponent also develops their d pawn. I develop my knight to c6. Opponent does pawn to g3, presumably setting up for our fianchetto. My other knight to f6. The opponent develops their second knight. So now all 4 knights are developed. I now develop my bishop to f5. The opponent develops their bishop as a fianchetto. And my pawn to e6, setting up a nice chain, helping to control the center. Opponent castles. I develop my second bishop to d6. Now, opponent decides to move their bishop to g5, potentially attacking the knight and pinning it to the queen. Now, I don't really like that, so I immediately moved h6, asking the question, what is the opponent really going to do with that bishop? Opponent decides to withdraw, which is probably not the best move. As you can see, they suggested taking the knight. And basically, if you're going to try to pin the knight, you have to be willing to take it. Otherwise, it's a wasted move. The bishop made 2 moves when it could have just moved once to that position. I pushed my knight further to g4, potential attack on the bishop on e3. The opponent now moves the queen to protect that bishop, so capturing back the pawn, which damaged the pawn structure. So that makes sense. That move makes sense. I decide to castle. Opponents again asking the question, what am I going to do with the knight? Of course, I was going to take the bishop, so that was always a fine move for me. Now, the issue here, and I think this is why the reason why chess.com thinks this is a good move, is if they capture with the queen, that pawn now becomes hanging. They do capture. However, I chose not to take the pawn straight up. I made this queen move to f6. And my logic here was that I actually did want to develop it. I saw a few things here. So the opponent had already weakened the defense of the king by moving the pawn to h3. And there was a potential, I thought, that the queen and the bishop could line up on a diagonal for an attack. At least that was still sort of glimmer at this time. I didn't have a firm plan. The opponent pushes their g pawn forward to attack the bishop. Now, this can be, as you can see, the algorithm thinks this is a mistake, and this substantially is weakening the defense of the king. And I would note that this diagonal is now open. That was a free pawn, so captures. The opponent withdraws the queen to d2, presumably as an attack on the bishop. At this point, I moved queen to f4, which was the blunder that we saw before, so that bad move. But my logic here is that I'm asking the opponent, do they want to trade queens? And in the context of that trade, it makes the move queen to take bishop on c2 particularly attractive. Now, the best move for the opponent is actually that pawn move, which forces me to withdraw the queen. However, I think just the psychology of it meant that it was very likely the opponent would actually take the bishop. And the reason I wanted to do that is the very powerful move knight to d4. And the reason that's powerful is that firstly, it will then fork the queen and the knight. And more importantly, with these two pieces now lined up in a battery, queen to h2 is checkmate if that knight is no longer defending that square. So the opponent captures the knight move to d4, and here the opponent only has one move. They cannot capture, as that would be checkmate, if they don't move if they don't do something. Let's say they try to push that pawn forward, attacking the queen. That doesn't work because knight captures knight on f3 comes with check. And again, next move is checkmate. The only move, as I mentioned before, is that the opponent needs to move the rook somewhere to give the king some breathing room. However, the opponent makes a serious mistake by trying to protect the knight with the queen, but that doesn't work. That comes with check, and no matter what the opponent does, they can capture back. The next move is checkmate. GG, tricky trap with the knight there. Good game. One of the learnings that I got when analysing this game is that simple tactics like lining up a bishop and a queen for a mating attack are powerful and sometimes underestimated when a position is seemingly defended. Knights are also a tricky piece for setting traps as their moves are less straightforward to visualise. I hope you enjoyed the game, and thanks for watching.